ad hoc meeting. I am sorry to be just a few minutes delayed, but we're happy that you're here. We're going to go around, or Rob, do you want to read the statement to anyone? If anyone is online and they want to speak, Rob will let you know how to join us. Station, go ahead, Rob.
If you want to speak during the speaking of the public session, please click the hand icon on the bottom right corner of your screen. We will then ask you your name, your school association, and your association to the community, and we will let you in at the appropriate time. Please keep your mic and camera muted until we call your name to speak during the speaking of the public. Thank you.
And let's go around and see who we have with us in the room, and then we'll get started.
Preschool teacher.
Make sure, my friends, that the green light is on the mic, so that way you can hear you.
You may have to pull it a little closer because I was far like that earlier and he couldn't hear me. Okay.
Ashley Garland, 6th grade intervention specialist, John P. Parker.
Deborah Elkins Brown, John P. Parker.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Jones. I'm a board and member and a member of this committee.
Dr. Kareem Moffitt, board member.
Eve Bolden, board member.
Carol Gibbs, Mount Auburn Community Development Corporation President, CEO, Mount Auburn Community Council, and Chairman of the LSDMC of Taft Elementary.
Emily Bell, ASME, Local 232.
All right. Well, thank everyone for joining. Thank you all for joining us. And we do have a couple people online, more than a few. And so we actually don't have a very heavy agenda today. And this is actually a good thing. I think this is the first, at least for the past few months, that we don't have a huge agenda to get through. But we do have 2 items, with one of them having 5 bullets. So maybe that's relative. Let's start. Bramble posting. It has my name there, but I will say this. We did speak to Superintendent Wright about the posting for Bramble, and I believe that has been rectified. Do you know? Does anyone know?
I can't remember what the concern.
We had staff that attended our meeting and shared that there was a posting, I think approximately a week prior, that listed Ms. Elkins Brown. Yes, ma'am. The type of school as being a micro school, and the position. I don't know if it was still a founding principal, but it just had listings that we. So that we just mentioned it, and I believe that's been rectified. Does anyone know anything else?
I haven't checked it as to, because it appeared in like Ed Week, as well as our own local postings for HR, which was unfortunate, and it was posted as a founding principal. So superintendent was informed that that would not be the case, and then also that there was no commitment about what kind of school it was going to be. So I know that those things were dealt with. I can't get out of Ed Week, but I hope that it's no longer posted on our HR. But again, the board does not receive those that website. And so and said that and even pulled back on the requirement, or not the requirement, but the announced date that an LSDMC would be meeting. That had to be pulled back as well. All those things preceded, I think, even the final purchase for Bramble. And now there's been, I think, 1 or 2 good meetings out at Bramble where it's been announced about the 4 preschool classes, possibly more. And as far as I know, that's where we are. I do want to talk later about the little bit of information about the amount of money that's not for the purchase, but for the renovation of Bramble. I'm a little concerned about that, but
You want to talk about it now?
Well, I've Bramble's a great building. It's a great location and a great property attached and also wonderful property that's contiguous to it. And I think we're all excited about it, but it's my understanding from visiting out there during those meetings, or at least during one of the meetings and prior to that, that a number in the $5-6 million range has been forwarded to do some of the renovation. And I'm not sure that the board's fully aware of that, or if that's correct, and we probably need to follow that up. That's a significant amount of money, obviously, and certainly some of it really needs to be spent. Also, the possible use initially, not only for the classrooms, but there's some office space too that's being thought of, because I think they're trying to relocate some folks from different office spaces within the district. So I just think that we probably want to have that be a conversation with the superintendent and the chief operating officer, both financially and also thinking in terms of where we are. And I think that there's further information too. There's, I think, going to be continued community engagement as well.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
I think all of those are valid concerns, and I would suggest, and I think probably Ms. Bolden is probably thinking the same thing, that may be a conversation that is part of sort of a normal discussion among full board. And I guess I'm thinking about it just in terms of what our charge is, especially as I look at all the consensus points. So I agree with what she's saying and think it's, you know, we just, I guess what I'm saying is that maybe shouldn't be a part of this committee's discussion today or ongoing. Just Bramble in general is more of a property discussion, or yeah.
Question.
Hold on one second. So I think that we can't really have the conversation because the administration is not here.
Right.
No one from their
today,
team is
right.
here.
Yeah.
And so that's I wasn't expecting that no one would be here. I kind of thought that the chief of staff was going to stay for our meeting, but I understand. And so we can't get any type of clarity, but I do think that maybe perhaps we could formalize a question, of course, put it in our summation in August, our report. But I think that we probably could ask a question here for clarification as well about clarity around the budget, clarity around building usage, because, and in the full board. Or is that what you're saying, or no?
No, I think you're hitting on what I'm saying, but, and this is probably not the discussion for right at this moment.
Right.
I think I am suggesting something that really, from my perspective, meets, and then I'm saying my own personal needs around how we formulate the committee report. And I'm saying that because I don't believe that we can fully address, or should fully address, all the individual school sites' concerns as part of this committee. I think it could be combined in a sort of the consensus point that we all agree on in a broad scope. That's what I'm saying. But so I'm suggesting that we not talk specifically about Bramble and what Board Member Bolden is saying in this context. It needs to be discussed, but maybe not in the context of this committee. And I think there might be some disagreement about it, but it's okay. I mean,
No, I would agree. I didn't want to have knowledge that I did not share.
yeah,
Sure,
I
sure.
mean, responding
That's-
to the
right.
bullet, yeah.
Well, and to your statement, there are things that I agree with and there are things that I don't. So just cursory, I think some of what was brought up is very applicable for this committee, and decisions is in an exploratory nature. Decisions should be discussed by the full board, absolutely. But I, and we can certainly come to consensus about it, I understood this committee to be the exploratory arm of the board. And so we are to ask questions to get some sort of information that the full board would need to be able to have an informative discussion and then make a decision. We shouldn't go to the full board and then have a bunch of questions that still need to be answered. We should be able to ask questions here, get answers here, and then take all of that information back. Now, correct me if that's not the definition of an ad hoc committee, but that to me is the purpose. Now, when you talk about programming, I think we should ask questions about what is the administration's intention of the programming here, and maybe garner some questions, some additional questions, and then maybe discuss that on the full board. But I think maybe I need clarification on what you mean.
Well,
versus
I
the
think for the
definition.
sake of the discussion and moving on with the agenda, I think where my thinking has more to do with this themes development than it does this specific conversation. So I can maybe express my thoughts a little differently when we get to that agenda.
Okay. So, with regard to the Bramble posting, as it's listed on the agenda, we were informed that there was clarity around that, and that should be rectified. Okay.
I look forward to seeing.
Okay.
Just a brief comment. I think that because I hear your response, Dr. Moffitt, to the comment, but I think the fact that it was raised in this committee, I think it does warrant a response because it was folks from the community that raised it. So I agree with that. I just want to be clear. I'm not saying I don't agree in that context, but it was raised in the committee, so I appreciate that it was a response.
Ms. Brown, go ahead.
Yes, my question is, you had mentioned before there was going to be 4 classes this coming year. You just mentioned 4 classes, possibly more. So are there discussions if there are going to be more than 4 classes at the beginning of the year at Granville?
Are you saying that? So I think what I heard you say is that there would be 4 classrooms and offices. Or no?
You said possibly.
You said that?
I
Oh,
said
okay, well then.
4, possibly more.
Okay. Let you
And
go.
that, the only reason I'm saying that is that it depends upon obviously how many people show up. I mean, if we have 20 more people than 4, or 20 more people than the 80, or whatever that would be, that want to go there, I mean, it would be hard, I'd be hard pressed to turn 20 families away if in the midst of it, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is for 4, and then offices being consolidated, and that's part of the temporary kind of renovation. But as the superintendent said at least twice in those public meetings in here, it does not impact the preschool numbers or what have you at J.P. Parker. I mean, that's what she said in the,
And then for this year.
yeah, for this year.
Okay. Did your question answered? Okay. I'm just taking notes, guys. I'm trying to, for our admin who is not here, I just wanted to take notes.
And our board staff is unable to be here due to illness and what have you. So you're doing triple duty, Dr. Moffitt.
Yeah.
I'm glad you've got that doctorate, because without that additional title, I don't know that you could do 4 things at the same time, which is what you're having to do.
Yeah, that definitely helps. It was expensive. UC owes me nothing, I tell you. I got a building over there I paid for, I think.
God bless America.
So what, item B, wait list numbers for preschool and Bramble in addition to accurate attendance numbers to date. That was actually not my item. That was a board member Bolton's item. The desire for maybe it wasn't. I don't know. It's on our list. So it might have been my number. So did we
I
get,
think it was generated by comments that people had last month.
okay.
That, okay, it's saying that we have, so it was a community driven item, I believe, that we put on there. And that was the idea of this, just to the point of How many are you really looking at? Is there a wait list? Because I think we
Mhm.
made or the superintendent made a comment that indeed, as did the early childhood person, Ms. Brooks, that there is a wait list on the east side of town, and we've known for 5 years.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, this is some of the action items Jeremy shared in the PowerPoint.
Okay,
Some information.
so I apologize to everybody. This is the very first time that I've seen this, so we don't have copies of this. We are all reading this at the same time, which is slightly problematic. But for 1B, a district preschool waitlist does not exist. There are currently approximately 2,200 pre-K seats within the district, which aligns with the figures that were quoted at the last meeting. If an individual site's pre-K program is full, early childhood works with the family to identify appropriate available seat options. And then he said, see this attendance handout for final upcoming attendance rate reports, but I don't see Bramble on the list.
Because it doesn't exist.
Well, this is the one that I believe he's talking about, which everyone should kind of have, but they are accepting students for Bramble because I met a lady who just registered her daughter. So
They're recruiting
yeah.
for Bramble, absolutely, hot and heavy.
So do we know how many students have been accepted?
No,
we
wouldn't know that necessarily yet, but their target is, as they've said publicly and here, their target is 4 classes, which is 80 kids.
Are they recruiting for Parker as well?
I don't know if they're recruiting for Parker as well any more than they recruit for everyone that has preschool sites, which is over, how many 100 in some classes district-wide. So it's in the general recruitment, I would assume.
Well, I guess we can definitely agree to disagree because I think that they have numbers of students at the moment to date that have been accepted to go into the Bramble building.
Well, I'm not disputing that. I'm saying they are recruiting, trying to get 80 people, 80 children at Bramble. I don't know how far along they are
Sure.
on that target, and we would have to ask Ms. Brooks for that. And I don't know on JP Parker. JP Parker people have told us how many classes they have of preschool.
There are 4 preschool classes
Right.
at Parker. None of them were full.
Well, that is listed here. It says 84% and 83. I don't know. Is 84 the percentage or is 84 the?
My question is if you- percentages.
Okay, so hold on one second.
Why would she know that? Yeah.
I'm very frustrated.
I'm sorry.
And no. I'm part of it is we've got a lot of sidebar conversations which are very interesting and informative that we need to hear, but I don't have all the information is the other part that is very confusing to me. I don't know if these numbers are what we asked for because I don't know if these numbers are numbers of students or are these numbers an average or percentage of students that attend.
Since I'm the person that asked for it,
Yes, ma'am.
Jeremy's going to, we're going to read out Jeremy.
Okay, thank you. But in the meantime, let me know when Jeremy gets here. Go ahead.
I asked, as we've had before, for each building in the district, the capacity and the utilization for each building based upon the enrollment for this past year.
Sure.
So that's what I asked for, and we've had this chart or some semblance of it before. The question about Bramble was it's 4 preschool classes. I don't know that we would know the status of that enrollment since it began 2 weeks ago at the most. And the people that are here from JP Parker are saying there's 4 preschool classes at JP Parker that superintendent would not be impacted. And you're saying that not all 4 of them are full.
Now, the 80, it is a percentage.
Yeah, it's
Because when the math, it equals
Okay.
a percentage of.
yeah, that's
Okay.
the utilization piece. So the utilization is a percentage.
So that helps. Well, that helps me. But now I only see on the sheet P3, P4. That you said there are 4 classes, right?
P3 would be for the 4-year-olds.
So is that 2 classes of 3s and 2 classes of
No,
4?
they're mixed. Who was age
Mix, yeah.
So I love the littles, but when you say that there are 4
There are
classes,
4 full classrooms. 2 are Head Start funded, 2 are funded through Preschool Promise and tuition and titles and stuff like that.
so
So
but
when we're looking at like in Bramble, my curiosity was what would the funding be, because that would also affect her.
well, and if I only see 2 here,
There's 2 ages,
right?
3s, and then they count the 4s. If they turn 5, but they missed the kindergarten
I got you.
deadline, they're still there. So it's essentially 2 age groups, the
I got you.
3s and the 4s,
I got you.
or first years and second years, however you want to look at it.
Sure.
And so you have your percentage of the 3s and your percentage of the 4. That's utilization. But there are 4 classrooms funded differently.
Okay, so my question is, I got you. You're taking me along. Is this the preschool? Is this the CPP number? Like, I'm wondering, is this? Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Just hold on while I ask my question. What is this representative of? Is this representative of everybody's, no matter the funding model, or is this representative of
It is
everybody's? Okay, that's
why preschoolers we had and got, and it's
the same numbers. Okay, gotcha. I just wanted to be taken like I was too. All right. So, Jeremy, would you like to offer a little bit of clarification? Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Apologies for being a little bit late. Got stuck in traffic trying to get back here for jumping on. So I think just to clarify what you were looking at from the attendance numbers, those are just the attendance rate year to date for the entire district, which breaks it down by school and grade. So I don't think necessarily this is tied directly to Bramble as a whole. It's just the entire district's breakdown of the attendance rate for the previous school year. To go back just a little bit, I heard part of the conversation around Bramble's enrollment. So to be clear, the state walkthrough for Bramble is currently scheduled for August 14th, 15th, or 16th, depending on the state of the classrooms at the school. Until that walkthrough is completed, my understanding is that we can't truly recruit and enroll students full effort until the certification is complete. However, in preparation, we've taken the interest currently, as of earlier this week, talking to Vera, they're still recruiting for that 80 number, and they don't have a number, so to speak, yet as to what they have on the list that's waiting to go in.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't have a question, but I'm glad he clarified that, because as we, having lived through FMP, that the document of the certificate of occupancy is crucial, crucial. So that's what they're preparing for.
Yes, ma'am.
On the previous slide, it said there was no wait list for pre-K. But then in the past, we was told there was like 2,000 or that didn't have a place to go. And then it was corrected last week that there was only 200 kids that needed a place to go. But I'm looking up here and it says district preschool waitlist does not exist. But in the past, it was like we had all these kids and nowhere to place them. So,
Well, that's also before the preschool expansion and preschool promise.
yeah.
When John P. Parker only had 2 preschools, there was an extensive,
Right.
but now we have 4.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I'm happy to add to that. There, for at least the existence of preschool promise, we have not had enough seats on the east side of town. Member Jones will remember that this has always been an issue. We didn't have enough seats on the west side. We didn't have enough seats on the central side or central corridor. But on the east side, we've not been unable to break through, and that was part of the attraction. So there's been interest on the east side and not enough seats, which was part of the reason we generated this interest regarding Bramble. So the wait list, they claim they don't have a wait list necessarily for preschool as much as because they're always in a perpetual placement for families. But yes, we didn't have enough seats for the interest on the east side as a result of the preschool promise. And yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I think Ms. Bolton touched on kind of where my thinking is, and I'm a little frustrated too because I do recall at the last meeting, and I believe Ms. Bolton asked very specifically for a wait list for the entire district. I believe she did. I was looking at my notes. I didn't document it, so I think she did. But I think the overall intent is we have to look at the big picture.
Right.
And I appreciate that John P. Parker is here. That you all have been so helpful in helping us understand what some of the concerns are. But I think we really have to be careful not to delve into individual school issues right now until we have a big picture. So I agree with your comment about looking at the big picture. What is capacity across the district? Where are the wait lists across the district? Because in my opinion, those are the broad scope items that I think we can agree have to be addressed. Now, how we address them might be more at the individual school level. So I just wanted to make that point, and I think, it feels a little bit like we're caught up in talking about specific schools, which is important. They wouldn't be here if it wasn't, but we are looking at big pictures. That's just where I'm. And I know you're going to disagree.
No. You definitely continue to ground us in the function of the committee and the goal of the board to stay big picture. Where we disagree is that I think part of our charge is in looking at, and we've honed down the corridor model and what goes inside of the corridor model. But yes. I also think that it would be I think that it is also our charge to look at within the corridors, the attendance, the enrollment of those schools that are most impacted by the things that are going around in that community. Bramble, the reason why I think Bramble is so significant at this moment is because it sits within a corridor that we lightly discussed prior to purchasing Bramble about looking at a middle school option and what impact would that have on attendance of the other schools around it. And when you introduce Bramble, now you've shifted things within the corridor that we were looking at, particularly John P. Parker, particularly Pleasant Ridge. So we also talked about the need to have PRM have a drop down so that we could get more traffic towards those other things. I think those are absolutely board ad hoc committee discussion topics. Where I think maybe you're feeling a little consternation is this feels because one particular school is advocating for their interests, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing to bring in, but I think that it's also demonstrative of the fact that engagement has been lacking and communication is significantly missing. So if those things were evident and going on regularly, then there wouldn't be one school advocating because they would be informed. And so I think it is the responsibility of an ad hoc committee to do that. That's what our charge was. Our charge was to engage the community and have the superintendent or administration at the same table with board members to make decisions around that corridor. So we don't disagree. It's just when we start touching into something that I think that you feel is a little, I don't know how you feel, but you remind us of that, and it's fine. But I think that we just disagree that it's not this committee's discussion.
We don't disagree in what needs to happen. We disagree in how we approach it. And I don't feel like I really am I feel very strongly that we can't fully understand J.P. Parker's situation or Bramble's situation or Pleasant Ridge situation until we know the big picture. And that's what it has been frustrating to me. We addressed some really, really key, we had agendas that are packed with wonderful thoughts and agenda items and ideas. And I don't feel like that we can capture or address all of them until we have the big picture of what all these corridors look like. Where are the needs? Where are the gaps? What do we need to focus energies on? And then with your comment about the community engagement piece, we have to engage all of our schools, not just the ones that show up at the committee meeting.
Oh, absolutely. But I think we did do the big picture.
I think you two are agreeing and you don't even know it.
Well, I think that we did do the big picture, and the big picture led us to this corridor in this topic. But like I said, you gave a what you said that was really representative of the problem that I think is you shared. Board Member Bolton asked for the wait list of the district and didn't get it, which is representative of we've asked for things that we didn't get timely. So how can we have it on a committee level that we don't get the things that we need when you want to take it to the board and have a discussion and then we only meet twice a month? That to me is like, we need to get into what the questions are so that we have information. And when we take it to the board, we can have informative discussions. Moving on, what was your, I'm sorry, you had a question? 2 minutes, we got to limit everybody to 2 minutes too.
That's fine. I look at big picture. I look at whole child. I've always said my job as a parent is to create a productive, well-rounded members. I think some of the feelings and things that there's
Oh, no, I don't. Sorry.
And state your name. Sorry, Kate Motos.
Madisonville Community Council Education Chair, PTSL President for Parker. Just concerned parent because I have a nephew that could be moving here who's going to be in that preschool age, and where does he go? Looking at just demographic information, I actually had a request because I'm curious to look at the cultural makeup of our preschools and where they are across the city and what that looks like, because that actually has been a topic of discussion. And one of the big concerns has been, are we in jeopardy, looking at big picture, of creating a segregated school population between one school and the other? And I think that's where a lot of concern has been placed, is are we creating a school that, while needed, becomes very one-sided? JPP has worked very hard to create a very diverse culture within its school, within the community. And there's a chance that that could be lost. And I think we do our students a disservice when we don't have schools that reflect what the world looks like, what the workplace looks like moving forward. If we put our kids in silos, they will not thrive.
Okay. All right. Yes, ma'am. Did you want to say something?
No, I think that's a reasonable point. And I think that goes to the unfortunate initial announcement of Bramble, which gave the impression that somehow it was going to be some kind of magnet. That was a critical mistake that was made, that has gotten us off on the wrong foot and has kept us on that same path the whole time. And that was a real, and I totally understand, having some familiarity with the community and the concerns, that it is not going to be a magnet school, and it's not going to be a micro school, and it's going to be a school that right now for this coming year is going to have preschool kids in it that live somehow on the east side of town or on the eastern corridor, because that's where we needed it. Just like we put Cheviot/Westwood Rising Stars in at Cheviot, because that's in Westwood, because we needed it there. That's why we have preschoolers at Aiken for the central corridor. I mean, that's so that, and the last thing we want to do is create any greater segregation than this district already has in its schools. And the second to last or next to last thing we ever want to do, as you've been watching this committee, we've been eliminating magnets, not adding magnets, in part for the very purpose that you expressed some concerns as to what could happen if we create a dual system. We're trying to get rid of that dual system to the degree that we can. And I honestly think that however Bramble grows and develops, how J.P. Parker grows and develops, how we use the Lighthouse building, how we look at Schroeder, ultimately becoming a 912, because I think we're looking at our high schools as being more 912, and that's an instructional piece. And I know very well that I would assume that some principals and whoever don't necessarily want to see 7th and 8th graders back in their buildings. I got that. I understand that. I taught school for 1,000,000 years. But right now, we're trying to figure out a way to invent, for the first time in CPS history, a middle school system, as well as get back to a high school that's a true high school. And I just think that we got off on the wrong foot from the get-go on this one. And I think if we can start to trust each other and you guys hold us accountable, we can get this happening so that it's really positive, super positive for the whole East Side, and actually very positive, eliminating some of the financial burdens that we have, some of the segregation burdens that we have within our system, and that whole grouping of schools over there, which is landlocked by other school districts. Part of that might be, and now this will be another can of worms you can worry about, is more open enrollment. Meaning that we're competing with the districts that are right at our borders. So there's all kinds of exciting things that can happen over there, but rest assured, there are certain things that aren't going to happen.
Yes, ma'am.
Communication is huge, especially on this one, but does anyone know if Bramble will be equipped for little people like Rising Star Vine? Yeah.
Yep.
I would hope it would be.
That'll be part of the certification of occupancy, and also the only way the state will approve it for a preschool.
So you should come over and see Rising Star Vine in Mount Auburn.
My first school is fine. So
She's been at this.
I have.
Well, I'm glad that I finally, because I could not understand. I thought maybe you were afraid of just losing your kids, but it's really more of an issue than that. So.
I'm glad that you brought up communication. I appreciate it.
So that is one of them. I'm sorry. That is one of the, because I heard that too.
So we are going to kind of hone it back in a little bit. I'm going to try to get off my soapbox, and I apologize.
It's that chair.
I'm going to try to be better. It's just, I just think we could solve a lot of problems if we communicated more. I just think that's just a lot of, when people do not know, I'm going to say it again, when people do not know something, they make up a narrative and fill it up with facts.
Well, there you go. We'll move on.
Well, let's just squash this.
Agenda.
We don't have, the only thing that the board has decided on is that we will have 4 classrooms with a capacity of 20 students at Bramble for next year in pre-K. Now tell me, what else?
According to the superintendent, with no impact on JP Parker for 1 year. That's what's been said, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's part of the worry is beyond the year, which
yes.
But right now, we're worrying about this year.
But wait, hold on. But we're gonna raise our hand. We're gonna have control here. To Board Member Bolton and to Board Member Jones, I would like to reiterate what the board has decided. Is just the 20 capacity 4 classrooms. That's the only thing we've talked about.
And to buy the building.
Great
expense against the wish of the treasurer. But go ahead.
Capacity, say that again.
The 20 students in 4 classrooms, 20 students per classroom with a
20 students per class.
4 classrooms at 20 students each.
So 80 kids. 80
kids for next year, and no impact to John P. Parker for next year. Hold on. I want us to stop there. Is that what you all have understood? Because I'm telling people that's what I understand. I want to be
And
accurate.
I will say, and the board reiterated that to the superintendent.
Okay. Is that what you understand too? Board Member Jones?
I'm not gonna dispute that that's what was said, but my brain is short. I don't remember specifically what was said, but I'll go with that.
I mean, just your understanding.
It makes practical sense, I mean, in terms of the discussions that we had. So, no, I'm not disputing.
Okay, so I just want the community to hear that that's where we stop. We tell you all, because we've said this a couple meetings, that this is all we've talked about, and you all have shared information with us that that's not what you've been told. But that is the only thing that we have discussed. Now, I'm not going to come back to you all, not because I'm being a booger bear, but because I want to get through this agenda. If we have an opportunity, we'll circle back. Number 3, I think we're on 3. Consensus themes development. List of ongoing and outstanding concerns that need responses and include transportation concerns as well. I know you got something on. This is our gatekeeper of consensus.
Yeah, well, this is the first time seeing this. If it came, I haven't had a chance to look at it.
It didn't.
And
Oh, it did.
Dynamic.
Yes, ma'am.
But I think the consensus points are so expansive. And I think there are opportunities to narrow it down. There's lots of overarching, global consistency points that we agree with. And then there are things that are individual schools that I think follow in the next phase. You know, I kind of see this, and this is just my thought, that this whole process of what ad hoc work has been is to really start looking at phases of development. And I see the more specific school concerns after community engagement, I might say, as being sort of in that end of first, second, and beginning of the second phase. So I'm saying at this point that I like it from what I see. I like it. I'd like the opportunity again. I think this is the basis for the report, or is this the actual report?
It's the basis.
Okay.
Yeah, we were supposed to, it was sent to you, and we were supposed to kind of add on to it or or make some suggestions together.
Okay, I'm
okay.
just saying it, but I promise that I will look at it. But again, I'm not, everything that I've heard make perfect sense to me. It's just, when do these things happen for me? So
Okay, I'm gonna.
bring the consensus point.
I get you, and let me just offer this, and then I promise I just gotta offer it because it's on my mind. I think that where we align is that there should be phases. Problem is, we're the only ones that think that, because things are advancing beyond our phase groups. So things are advancing in the individual school level that you would not put in this phase, but that are being put in this phase. For instance, micro school that got floated around. And if we just stayed on your path, this would be moving, the engine would be moving towards a micro school, and we would be stuck on, well, that's not in our phase, so we can't talk about it. And so my problem,
because the micro phase was discussed at the full board level. I want to be clear about that. So I already knew, and we already talked about that. That's not what I'm talking about.
But it was discussed at the board level. It was clarified at the board level, and it didn't stop. So it was discussed. You're absolutely correct. But the problem is, as of a few weeks ago, we just heard about a micro school being advertised, and we talked about stopping that over a month ago. So the problem is, when you stick to phases, everybody got to be on the same page with phases. And if everybody's not on the same page with phases, then the people that are driving the truck are moving on to the next phase, and we've told them not to do that. So for me, where does that? I got to go into phase 2 if you're in phase 2, because you put me in phase 2. We were in phase 1, and we were very clear. We just sat here and said what phase 1 is and what we agreed to as an entire board, yet we were moved into phase 2. So now what's the problem? What do we stay with what you're saying and not talk about individual schools? We got to all not talk about individual schools.
If we talk, and I'm not going to get into who did what or what didn't happen while that. My point is, and my concerns are more around the whole community engagement, but what we're talking about in a global sense. In a global sense. We've had schools who have been at this committee, God bless them, because they're giving up their time to do that, to express concerns. we've not yet had a chance to really speak publicly about the big picture of, or recommendations of ad hoc to the general community. We've not had a chance, all the schools haven't been here to express their concerns about it because they don't know the big picture. The only schools that know the big picture, have the big picture, are the ones who have attended this meeting. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to blame. I don't want to say, well, this didn't happen, that didn't happen. Our job is to come up with broad scope recommendations. That's our job.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, again, I think both of you are agreeing. That's how I'm approaching it as the third member on the committee.
We're trying to get some
You are, and we are not.
Not at all, but
It's
I'm
okay,
moving
though.
ahead on. The report that is there is, if I can go through some of it, I think it'd be great if, well, the three of us are here without the administration, and we have Jeremy, and that's great, but without the administration, can we go through the few pages of consensus points to see if the three of us, I think we do, can maintain that these are consensus and these are big parts?
That will certainly make me feel a lot more comfortable.
There you go.
But we can't do it today.
Well, I don't know,
I can't.
because, well, here's I don't know that it's going to take that long. My point is, we're supposed to be submitting a report in August. This is July. So the first few pages of this report, it's a draft. I think captures some of our consensus, maybe all of them. Then the next part, the executive summary, is from the administration. This is the thing that they submitted to us as a result of the work they did in their audit, their program audit. Then the next section is where we have CPS properties, and that's what the general counsel has submitted to us during committee meetings. And then the next few pages speak of what's been discussed, nothing's decided about those properties. What we are missing are a couple of things. I believe I don't know that they've been, I haven't looked at this again. We do need the summary from the treasurer and from general counsel on the history of boundary lines and drawing boundary lines, because they submitted that. We know the board staff did put together a list, and this needs to be augmented, to list of the board people and the community people that have testified so far. That's this long list.
Is this available for us to view as well, or?
As soon as it gets done, it will be. Like we just have been drafting it. This is all, if you notice, it all says draft. Yeah, this is just kind of, we have to put a report together for you all. So this is just us kind of putting this together, but it will be.
So anyway, this has to be augmented because it has, the staff has gone through to figure out who's been here. But I just think that the part that we could do and look at is just check off what we agree as a consensus point. They're big stuff. It gets specific towards the back about property use in individual buildings. I mean, there was a first draft. This is maybe a second draft because staff has augmented it. I mean, our own board staff. But if we don't want to do those consensus thing, we could look at it individually and get back to each other. I'm just saying that we're supposed to be submitting something in August.
I think it's a great start. I really do. I looked at it the way you described it in terms of the components of it. I support that.
Okay.
I did write down, you said something about fiscal analysis. I think there's a need to have some fiscal analysis or financial picture to be a part of this. And you also said the history piece about.
Yeah, remember they, right.
Yeah. I think
It's a good start.
reasonable yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I think it's reasonable for us to sit and agree on that. I think that's gonna be the crux of this whole thing, is us agreeing on that.
Consensus. I agree.
We've already, okay,
We
well,
haven't agreed on all these, I'm
what,
sorry.
no. What I'm gonna say is we are not going to waste time discussing consensus items again that we've already spent time. Every meeting we're talking about consensus items and going back and forth to that just seems like a lesson in futility to me. I think what we can do is take the consensus items that we've agreed upon and fit these things into them. And if there's something that doesn't fit, then you can say that. I'm not interested in going back and forth again about, do we agree, do we not agree? We've already had this discussion. This is the 7th month we've had this discussion. We've already agreed to them. Now, what we're talking about, and I appreciate the attempt to stay high level, and I think that's very useful and beneficial, but at some point this becomes a waste of time, and things are still happening while we're sitting here talking about consensus items that we've already discussed. I don't have time like that. I just don't. But if you all do, that's perfectly fine. This was sent to you. I can send it to you again. If you didn't get a chance to read it, then you are gonna, at some point you have to make the decision, we all do, to dedicate the time to look into it, because we talked about having a report in 2 weeks and we're still talking about consensus items that need to be discussed, which we've talked about and I've reported in a board meeting multiple times over and over and over again. Yet and still, whether or not you want to place blame or not, I understand, but I'm being dragged into discussions on a school level that you're telling me I shouldn't have to be dragged into because we need to stay high level. We can agree. We've talked about these consensus items before. What I think we can do is we can go through individually and put these consensus items that are on here in a bucket that we've already agreed on, and we can work that way within putting them there. They're already there. It's already there. It's just already there.
My last, and then I'll leave it alone. You made the comment that we got this. I don't know when we got it. I didn't have it as of yesterday. And so I don't know when it was sent, but that's neither here nor there. But the point is, and I agree with the recommendation for us. I don't want to have another meeting for us to sit and have this kind of discussion or disagreement about, because I don't believe that I believe that these can be put in buckets, because it's a whole lot of them. And all I'm saying is that, and I have some of my own notes I'd like to add to that, so I'm happy to do my own work and do whatever we need to do. But and I don't want to get into the blame. And I had asked the last meeting also, because there were lots of questions that came up that were based in individual school concerns. And I recall asking that we develop sort of a parking lot list of those concerns that can be put to administration in a different way. They didn't become consensus items one way or the other, but just the thoughts and things that came up. And again, I'm gonna hold to the point that the folks who have attended the meetings have spoken very clearly about their concerns, but we have all these other schools that don't even know what we're doing. That's all I'm saying. That's all my point is. But I am willing to take a look and add my own comments to where we are with the consensus points. I can do that.
Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think the consensus points are the beginning of the very general recommendations of the report. And the rest of this is sharing what the administration came up with regarding the audit and also available property. And there are other things that need to be the fiscal concerns and issues, and also the history regarding segregation and drawing lines and the legal things that need to be there. Those two things can be added. The one thing I would say, and I'm going to talk about phases. Let me tell you, this doesn't really work very well as a phase. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, because phase 3 is going to be impacted by phase 1. And phase 4 is going to be impacted by phase 2. It is a house of cards.
Mhm.
And the other piece, and I don't mean to belabor this, but part of this is if we don't do some major things right now, or if not, obviously we've missed FY24. If we don't do something that's impacting FY25, fiscal year 25, we're not going to have money. A lot of this is a financial redesign as much as it's a programmatic redesign. So this isn't something where we're going to go to each of the 65 schools and spend 5 months talking to one another. It can't be. It's going to have to be some big picture where we can justify what we're trying to do, and not every school is going to be impacted. Some schools will, some schools won't, but the reality is there's an urgency to this because, very frankly, this started almost 7 years ago. And we still, there's another reason why there's somebody from outside our district that's the superintendent now, because internally we had people that wouldn't take action even after we decided east and west. I mean, it's like, what do you mean you've been doing this enrollment wrong? We told you 3 years ago. So I just think that I think it'd be great if we could come to grips, because I think if the three of us agree on particular consensus points and bring that to the board, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of the other 4 people, after all the work we've done, are going to say, oh no, that's stupid. I don't think they will, but they want to see it fit into a larger vision as to the near future and distant future. Like that piece about middle schools that's a foundational block. It really is. I mean, and so I just think if we can reach some consensus, and I don't know that these are all the consensus ones, and I don't know if the ones that are listed are all consensus. So if we can find a way
Exactly. That's
to,
my point.
that's right. And I think that's great. But if we don't list them, well, there's no discussion.
Exactly. And that
It's
is,
just,
I'm sorry, I did not mean to.
no, I just think it'd be great for us, even, I don't know that we're allowed to using email for a full committee to get back to one another, but we can certainly submit to Phyllis
I'm going to forward this to you
or
now,
Pat
so you have it.
I'm not seeing it, and I apologize if I'm overlooking.
Well, it may not have, I don't know.
That's okay. Well, we'll fix the problem because you have it now. So, I just think we need to, we spend a lot of time trying to stay up on the perch instead of helping get things done. And then when things are getting done, we're up on the perch taking the hit from the people who we're responsible to because we should have known something. I'm not going to keep doing that. Everybody needs to stop. So that's how I feel about it. Yes, ma'am.
So one of my memory's bad, I'm old, but it seems to me we talked about having to take some of those schools that had low percentages and combine
Validation.
things. She reports that we got today supposed to match.
Let's let Jeremy answer that question. Jeremy, you supplied us with this information. We have the master district profile data sheet, and then we have the 23 school year 23 year to date attendance for ad hoc. The question was, are the sheets supposed to align?
Thanks, and no, I'm not sure what alignment we would be looking for, but they're completely independent. The attendance is just the attendance rate from the final of the 22-23 school year we just completed. That's just our attendance rates for year to date throughout the entire year. The master profile or the master district profile is what we've been looking at, virtually from the beginning of the committee, where it lists all the schools. This version is just very, very slightly updated so that it organizes the schools differently into all the central at the top, followed by east, followed by west, and then the utilization category, the next to last column, is color coded for the schools that have greater than 75% utilization are in red. Those with less than 60% utilization are in green. So this actually is for a future agenda item, 1E. But this is just, again, the profiles we've been looking at, just slightly reorganized based on the request. But there's no alignment between the two files.
Thanks,
So
Jeremy.
what I'm looking at is Taft, obviously. The
Little Taft.
Little Taft, yes.
Okay.
So the year-to-date attendance says that we are running 79.9%. And the utilization says we're running 61.25%. That's a big difference.
Jeremy, did you hear her question?
Yeah, so the utilization is a factor of how many seats are in the school versus how much what the enrollment is for the school to fill those seats. The attendance is based on the number of the seats that are full, is based on the number of students actually showing up on a daily basis on average of the ones for the seats that are full.
Gotcha.
Different populations.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on. Did you have anything else?
No, that's good.
Did you have anything
I
else?
love this stuff.
List of offices and facilities outside of central office.
That's
Yes,
mine
ma'am.
too.
Yes, ma'am. I think
Because
Jeremy's got some information.
she's got information. I just asked about it because there's offices and stuff that are taking up space that could be classroom space or other things. Some of it needs to be in particular buildings and some of it doesn't. So I was just interested as we get ready to really talk about utilization. That's the interest. So
And it looks like Iowa, Jacobs, and Rising Stars at Vine are the only ones. Hey, Jeremy, are those the only ones that we have?
No, so I believe Member Bolton listed earlier that you have a previously provided list of all of the properties. So this list is just identifying of those properties, which ones have staff or services outside of the central office. So those 3 locations actually have departmental staff in an office at that location.
Gotcha.
The other one that you may have an interest in that is debatable is the Rawson House. We do not currently have staff on site at Rawson House, but it is somewhere that we have available that often comes into those conversations.
Okay, so for the committee members, page 13 is in the report. It has the CPS properties, and we would just need to say Iowa Avenue Building, Jacobs Center, and then our.
Rising Star Vine has Project Connect in it.
Oh, okay. So we would just need to add that, Rising Stars at Vine. Okay.
great.
Board Member Jones, did you have anything? Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
Yep. One.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I know I have mentioned. So if you're looking at the picture, what are your thoughts or gonna happen to you? Because I'm not thinking, for me, I will not purchase property with a 1-year plan. Most businesses will look at a minimum of 5 years. So you can tell me what's gonna happen the first year, but no one can tell me what's gonna happen following year for John P. Park. And then considering this is supposed to be about preschool, I already know with doing some investigation, there are 5 other preschool places where the people from Oakley have an opportunity to send their kids, including to John P. Park. So I'm looking at the big picture as well. But if you're gonna talk about the big picture, we need to go also beyond year 1, especially when the building is purchased for over X millions of dollars, and you're talking about you mentioned 5 to 6 million to renovate Bramble. And is that 5 to 6 million being started? Is that to get it ready right now?
Just for preschool
Just for preschool
or for your 5 years?
or for your 5 years?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm happy to talk about the big picture based upon what this committee has talked about before. First of all, we have a need and an interest in expanding early childhood, and that's been an important thing for the community. And within a year or so, we're going to go back to the community for a renewal, and we need to know if that needs to be the same size or bigger, because this district is invested and this community is invested more in early childhood than any other of the 600 districts in the state of Ohio. So it's a commitment. Second of all, I think in this committee and elsewhere, we have almost all of our high schools are overcrowded. Almost all of them. And I think it is all of them unless you add maybe one of the like K-12s or something and you have the last grades. So that's important. Most of our high schools are overcrowded, and you can see most of that in the utilization chart. So that's a problem. We do not and will not ever be able to go back in the next several years to the community for another $1.2 billion bond issue like we did some years ago. So what we have to do is we have to figure out how to reduce the enrollment in our high schools so that we're not building more buildings than we need. We have to also then look at our record. This is almost from the very first meeting that this committee had, and we had somebody come in from College Hill who'd been a board member before and was the chair of the education committee up in College Hill Forum and read us the Riot Act about our test scores and our achievement level and our gaps and our whatever. So we've not been able to move very well on all of that. And so some of the thought was indeed one of the things that a lot of school districts in Hamilton County have are middle schools, not junior highs, because we did that and that didn't work real well. So one of the reasons, motivating factors for the FMP, that precedes me. So, and so that's the middle school concept that's evolving, and could that happen within the district is the invention of middle schools. Early, while Ms. Mitchell was here, we even talked about making the Lighthouse building a preschool kind of thing for early grades, and then being able to do something at J.P. Parker, and somehow Schroeder, instead of being 7-12 or something, instead be a 9-12. And that's what we're looking at, because we can't afford also the high schools of choice district-wide. We just can't even transport those kids. So, I mean, so the big picture is, yeah, there's a domino effect, but we felt we needed that Bramble location in order to kind of clear up some of the needs that you have on the east side, as well as reducing the two of the magnets on the east side, Silverton and Woodford. So those are all part of the big picture puzzles that are fit together within a border.
Okay.
Is
Thank
that
you.
fair,
Yes.
ladies?
Yeah, I think that sounds fair. And I think I think to have the historical perspective introduced and reintroduced over and over again is helpful, because it keeps us, that's to me what keeps us grounded on the why we're doing what we've done, because it sounds like we've been doing some of this before. So
Well,
that's good.
I don't trust this number, but Jeremy brought a number to us. The two financial numbers. One number was about changing the transportation efforts in the north central corridor. I mean, whether it's Winton Hills Academy and Pleasant Hill Academy or whatever. And I think there were bigger numbers than I think are true, but I sure don't know. And then if you just even start changing that, you're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then when the treasurer said, well, you could do this or you could do that, but this would cost you more staffing if you did it this way. And I forget what it was that we were talking about. Or, oh, I know what, the superintendent said you could do 3 new, not new buildings, but 3 currently used buildings for other stuff, and we can put middle schools in these 3 buildings because they're underutilized. At which point then the treasurer said, that's going to cost you more money, right? And so, but doing something within a corridor of existing buildings. And so this has been rich discussion. It really has been.
But that's how we got to this
To
drill
here,
down,
yeah.
because the treasurer wasn't at the first, I'm sorry, Carol, the treasurer wasn't at the first meeting when we said that. Then she came back because we wanted the transportation
Mhm.
information. We wanted to look at the numbers, because even though we had this great idea to help pull some of the pressure off of the high schools, it was going to be cost effective because of the certification of the teachers, and how some of them, and I don't want to get it wrong, but some of them were certified for certain grade levels, but we had to make sure that we had the grade levels that in the building that way. So it was like, wow. And then it was about transportation. So we kind of got to this corridor talking about Woodford by accident, asking questions about, hey, well, if we pulled it off of this one, that would, if we pulled Woodford and made it a middle school, this is theory, nothing final. If we pulled Woodward off, that would help PRM, that would help Silverton, that would help John P. Parker and change the drop down. And then, maybe Bramble would help. That's where we stayed, because at the same time, there was so much other conversation that took us in a different direction. But we were ideating about what it could look like, but we needed the transportation and the financial numbers too. And then as soon as those came in, there was just a whole discussion that we didn't have control over. And so we didn't set to go this way. I don't think we set to go this way as an ad hoc. It just kind of took us this way in trying to get all of the information, which included the financial piece too. Board Member Johnson.
Yeah, I do think I'm sort of glancing through this. There are points of reference in the consensus points that relate to transportation, but I think as a high priority concern that we somehow, as part of this report, need to incorporate some assessment or analysis of the transportation impact. And I don't know whether that's part of the fiscal report, but I think it should be a section. And some of the information that Jeremy collected for us, people need to see that. Here's the way it looks now, here's what was proposed, and here's perhaps what we see for future. And I don't know if all of that is, I know the first 2 parts are available, the third part we haven't gotten to yet. But I think it's such an important piece, and both of you guys just alluded to that. It is such an important piece of this whole thing. So it should be, I think.
I agree with you. I think to that point, unfortunately, we didn't stay on transportation long. We didn't. Right. We only got like 1 meeting where transportation numbers were discussed, and then we were waiting on the staffing impact numbers from Jen, and we have not visited that again. So we won't have much, but we will have something. I think we have a roundabout. I think Jeremy was like, I don't even want to say a couple hundred or a couple thousand per student, but that's the only, that's all we got. We didn't.
Some total number, like $300,000 if we changed, like, I think it was the Winton Hills kids and the Pleasant Hill kids.
Yeah, and that wasn't even this model, this middle school model. So that's how we got to Woodford, because we were talking about Pleasant Hill, Winton Hills, and how we needed to pull some enrollment off of that and how we could do that. And then we looked at the numbers, the capacity for a building, the enrollment, and then we got to Woodford and how those numbers looked a little lower. But if we were to make it a middle school, what that would look like. So, I mean, we can report, but we don't have a lot of numbers there. Yes, ma'am.
So if you took Taft Elementary, if you took the preschoolers and put them at Vine and added 7 and 8 to Taft, wouldn't that save transportation money?
You might think that.
Because they're all yellow bus.
But we would need, Jeremy will be able to, I think he did it for all. Jeremy, let's clarify with you. I want to say you ran the numbers on building utilization and middle school options and the only one that sort of, I want to say the way we got to Woodford was because that seemed the most feasible. Can you clarify?
Yeah, I believe we're talking about, we looked at an analysis of the capacity across the 3 corridors, and we were comparing the amount of open seats at various schools to see if there was ability to shift grades or school populations to free a building or to a portion of a building to be able to combine grades and do various things to open space for a middle school. We did
Mhm.
not model specifically Taft and Vine, so I would have to look at that one to really be able to address Ms. Gibbs' question. But that's what we were modeling. That, yeah, like you said, that led us to that whole corridor on the east side.
Okay.
Well, preschool kids don't have transportation. The parents have to bring them. So
So is that something you all would like Jeremy to look at?
it looks like we have capacity. I'm just, you want to experiment.
Well, Jeremy's got I think he's savvy enough to be able to pull whatever we're asking for. We didn't ask for that. Is that seem of interest? Is that what you would like to do? To look at transfer. I mean, we don't have enough transportation data to be reporting on a transportation report for boundaries, but if you would like to collect more, we can ask Jeremy for that.
I'm okay with whatever you all want. And I do think I think we do have some preliminary transportation data. I don't know that it's specific to what Carol was saying, but
I'm just saying you could look at TAP and see what, if there was a use in this experiment. I'd tell you the principal probably kill me for saying that.
Yeah, she don't want them.
I get it. Okay, so let's get them moving down the list. We're doing great. Oh, anybody else have anything? Okay, so we've got school capacity lists. I think we've pretty much touched on that. Administration will provide school capacity maps that already exist in order to make the meeting more productive.
They do
We've got that. We talked about it. The ones that are 75% more capacity. Jeremy, thank you for sharing that. And then is there any other does anyone have any formal questions around that? Yes, ma'am.
I would just say that besides the bigger picture about the high schools and the capacity and the middle school piece, and I think what we had talked about, the one that's the easiest is the South Avondale versus in Rockdale, because both of those are in the same neighborhood and generally, and both are under enrolled because when we designed the FMP, there were hundreds, perhaps thousands more children in Avondale than there are now. And we can go by as what that means and what's happened within the neighborhood. But it was easy to be thinking in terms of South Avondale School and Rockdale, as one of them being the primary building and one being the middle grade. So you could do that. On the east side, it was finding a particular building, as you pointed out, as a middle school or whatever. It's harder on the west side because our boundary lines are kind of weird anyway over there, and there's very little. It's a lot of its capacity, but I think that beyond all that, even if you look at College Hill, College Hill Fundamental, which is the elementary school, is the old elementary school in College Hill. Does that need to remain a magnet? This whole theme of what's a magnet and what isn't a magnet is all part of this discussion too. And do we have the citywides? So you look at the capacity on the Montessoris. So my point is there's certain specifics that have to be addressed. 1, Spencer. 2, Cans has to be addressed. And besides all the high schools, there are things that need doing, that need to be addressed, and we can't wait 4 years or 3 years. It has to be done in the next, whatever. So there are specific needs. The biggest specific need right now may be the need for a third Montessori high school, and we do not have enough money to build a brand new Montessori high school, but we need one because that's our growing population and people seem to want to stay in the district and we keep turning people away. So, you know, how do you use the Hughes Annex building, which is a great giant building in a super location? So there are very specific and urgent needs building by building. And we need to be aware, and should we jettison some of our property that we don't need? Can we make some millions of dollars there? So this is all very exciting, but that might be a part, Carolyn, of the report too, are the list of unanswered questions or directions needed by the board to us or what have you. So as we kind of, obviously we're not going to have our report for the first meeting in August, but by the end of August we could.
Okay. I think also, oh, hold on one second. I think also
Yeah.
what is, in this conversation of ESSER coming off a budget, when you brought up Hughes Annex, that makes sense to me. Like, could we have used some of that money to fix up, the Hughes Annex?
Absolutely.
Either for,
we could,
you know,
but
preschool or
what do we
whatever.
Yes. it's
Montessori,
ridiculous.
whatever. So, well, we don't, I don't know about Iowa, but you're right. I mean, we do, I just don't think that, I think there are multiple conversations that need to be happening at the same time rather than just, because of money, because of restrictions, we need to be having these conversations, in addition to Brandable, but definitely, for sure. Hughes Annex, I forgot about that because that could possibly
Magnificent
be,
building.
and we have this money that we have to spend. So, because we're going to lose it if we don't use it. Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna mention, I had looked at South Avondale and with the numbers being so low. That,
We did talk about that.
and because a lot of times what happens, you have to catch the bus from those schools to either go Withrow
Right.
or to use. And Withrow, it will bring their numbers down.
You're talking about for middle school, right? Yes.
Middle school, yes. And that saves on transportation. because
Sure does. They're
a
right
lot of
there.
them-
You're absolutely, we had that conversation early on because that's
It's
my
the
neighborhood.
easiest fix.
And it was an easy and quick fix because actually it would be Withrow, Woodward, and Hughes. That whole, some of those kids, based on where you live off of Reading Road, you go to Woodward, you go to Withrow, you go to Hughes. And so we did talk about that, but we never came back to it with regard to the transportation numbers. We never came back to it with regard to I think we started on it with staffing because some of the staff couldn't be, I don't know. Yes, it was something about their
Yeah,
certification.
4 to 9,
Yes.
that kind of stuff.
Yes. And so the treasurer had said it would actually cost us more money, and it wouldn't be efficient. And we were kind of going to wait for those numbers. So we didn't really get far with that, but we did.
I was just thinking. And that's what they did at Porter when they start moving.
We thought about that. We thought it was that simple, but for some reason it was not, according to the treasurer. And Jeremy, do you remember that conversation?
No, I'm gonna correct on that. It was the fact that the superintendent has suggested these 3 schools become our new middle schools. And it was in his
Which one?
transfer and they were, Douglas, I don't know, 2 others and they were kind of in the same general vicinity. They were under enrolled for some obvious reasons. And so that made sense. She was, in fairness to her, she was looking specifically at space. So it made sense to say this can be an easy fix. But then Jeremy and Jen talked about it and whatever, and it would save money, sort of, but not a great deal of money. But you're also concentrating all of the middle schools kind of in one area instead of trying to spread them into the 3 different corridors. So that's how it was. That's how that was handled. But yeah, the South Avondale and Rockdale are totally the simplest things. One building becomes PK something or other,
Mhm.
and then the other one becomes something to 8. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we-
the
it makes
superintendent's
them-
really interested in 6, 7, and 8, I think. But,
Mhm.
you know, I'm happy to go lower or high, whatever, but that's the simplest fix,
Mhm.
probably on the drawing table.
I think honestly, that's how we got to the quarter.
Yes.
You know, I think we had this so far, and we
That's
kind
how
of got to the
concept
quarter.
of the quarter.
Yes,
That example,
I think so. I think so.
because everybody got excited.
And we just lost the momentum. Y'all done came in here and took our momentum away.
It's these East Siders that got us sidetracked, I think. I'm not sure,
No,
but
I'm
I'm
just
glad they
kidding.
did.
I'm just kidding. But maybe, do you want to put that, Board Member Jones, as something that we ask about for more information? Because we never did get a treasure of a transportation or treasure report about that.
I'm open to us getting whatever we need to make sense of our recommendations. So if that's it, then I would support that.
Do you want to put that as a, let me clarify. Got to ask the right question. Do you, Mhm. I completely agree. I agree. Yes.
It's a quick question.
And then follow my ignorance. Where did we land on the transportation going from a mile to a mile and was a mile and a half? Did that end up getting
You
tabled?
No.
say that mile
It's stated mile.
to preserve the safety,
Okay.
the safety zone or whatever we were kind of calling it. And they didn't save enough bus to do it that way. But what they did do was that walking is a little bit longer. Instead of doing the mile, getting to your bus stop, that was the decision that they opted for. And it was with the general amount. It didn't look that big.
We look at her because that's her thing, is keeping it out of.
My middle initial,
I never heard an official. I
missed Right.
it, so I never heard an official.
I kept trying to hear him say it too.
Okay, so let's, in best interest of time, I think we scheduled to 3, but let's just, we are cooking with grease. What are we asking for our August meeting? We should have a report by then. At least finalized. And August, I think, is the 20, let me just double check. I don't, 20,
The second meeting in August?
no, for our
Oh, for
Yeah.
our meeting.
but do you want to do the report here first before we
Yes.
present it out?
We should.
Okay. So
Because we
our,
better be pretty much unified, not only with the 3 of us, but also superintendent and treasurer and buying what we're saying.
so the 24th is our scheduled meeting, August the 24th, August, yes. And
What time is that?
currently it's scheduled for 4.
4:00?
Yes, ma'am. But we will have, are you thinking maybe our draft? Like ready to,
Yeah, if everybody gets back about the consensus points, add some and ditch some.
I think we can count on that for sure.
So
Yes, ma'am.
what I will do, I think there is some. I'll send mine to Phyllis.
That's good.
Maybe you want to collect them. I don't know how you want to do it, but I was going to send mine to Phyllis.
That's good.
Well, the way that I had suggested to Pat is that we could make it, she made it a Word document and you just go in there and add your stuff, like we did the policy
That would
bylaws.
be great.
Everybody just kind of go in there and take out, and
Changes,
yeah,
and then they can, that's fine.
they're
So
the
we'll look
actual
for-
owners.
Yes.
I sent it to you.
I know.
Okay, but
But
I
I'm
think,
talking about the document to make changes on this one.
yeah, it's on the email. It should be
I
at the
saw it.
bottom.
I saw it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. You're gonna have 2 meetings and all,
An ad hoc meeting, we're only gonna have 1.
That's the 24.
Yes, ma'am.
and Rambo meeting?
That would be classic, wouldn't it?
It's gonna be on the 3rd. I just want to make sure.
So do you know?
What is that?
The 30th? Or the 3rd? Will be at Bramble?
Yes,
Okay, let me put that down. You know the time?
4:30 to 6.
August 3rd?
Correct. They have one Wednesday as well.
Yeah.
I was there.
That was.
Was it good?
How's that Wednesday? I missed that one. I was only at the first one.
I mean, I thought it was good.
There weren't enough parents, there was a lot of people from the board, so it was.
Not the.
No, she means
There was-
central office.
I think the composition was a little bit different. From my perspective, it was more administration partners. Very few parents, there were a it probably, to what I recognized was like 3 or 4 parents. And so we gotta.
It was
Yeah.
actually one parent, one lady I thought was a grandparent, that's from the community. But I was just thinking with those meetings, we're trying to get parents there in the summer meetings
Well, we are, yeah.
or.
Yeah, we are.
There's
And
no schedule.
that's the thing, I guess.
Yes.
Some of the parents want.
You're welcome to ask. I feel like it's a dumb question, but it's not. They keep talking about changing the name of the Bramble School to something else. Why are we doing that? And I'm asking from like people from alumni perspective that have said, why are they even talking about changing the name of the school? It's always been the Bramble School. What is wrong with it being the Bramble School? Well, currently it feels citizens of the world, so it has to officially be changed. Well, as a CPS school, it was always the Bramble School, and so I know that's also been a pain point that has come up of talking about like bigger picture neighborhood as a whole. Why are we trying to change something that's always been, if you will, with the exception of the couple of charter schools that were there? Because even when it was the charter schools, people would still refer to it as the Bramble School. So I was just curious from a CPS perspective, if you could shed some light on the reasoning process behind changing it to something other than the
My
Bramble School.
recollection is that we're having a bigger conversation, a broader conversation about names of schools and the process for that. For right now, I don't know that I've heard that. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm not hearing it specific to Bramble. I haven't heard it. But okay, well, okay. But what I'm
Wait,
saying
that the
is
name would be changed?
we have a policy. We have a policy that and a process talks about how we change the name of the schools, and that goes to board. That's a board thing, and we haven't talked about, at least I don't recall us having a specific conversation about Bramble. If I'm wrong, correct me.
I thought it was going to go through policy.
It has to go through.
My recollection is that changing the name of the school was mentioned, Bramble, but it was also mentioned because of Lighthouse. Because they want to change the name of Lighthouse because it's too confusing. Now that we have it, it gets confused with Lighthouse Services. Yeah, so there was that. So there was Bramble. Then there's also the interest of finding ways to honor people. And the fact that we have so few schools named for women, and also, trying to honor local history, sort of whatever. So I think it's the bigger question about looking at all. I know we did all the research about all the names that we have. There's a lot of schools that are named for streets. Well, that's nice, but what does that do or whatever? So it's a big discussion, but I was there, and the superintendent did say that would be under consideration, was changing.
But the point is,
The process.
Not
Mhm.
one person decides that. It is a process that involves community.
Okay. Well, it was asked because, there's the street, there's the Bramble family, which was like a founding family of Madisonville. So I know there's been talk about like Jenny Bryant and that naming going to one of the schools. So I was just curious what the reasons behind it, because there's a lot of original, if you will, Bramble School alumni that are like, why are they changing the name? So to be able to have that context is very helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, kind of because so much change. I want to keep something the same, but
Well, I think it also stems to the fact that communication is not as efficient as it should be. Because when you purchase anything new, the first step is, or the first thought is, what are we going to call it? And so I think to the superintendent's defense slightly is that that's just the process. Like, what are we going to call it? What is it going to be as far as programming? Those are just normal questions, but there is a process in place that involves the community and the board to make those final decisions. It's not just an administrative decision.
And from a parent perspective, it's very confusing. Talking with my sister about it. She's like, wait, so you want me to choose a school that doesn't have administration, doesn't have a name, and you don't know what the long-term plan is?
Yeah,
Becomes very,
go to it.
yeah, becomes very convoluted. And,
Exactly it.
yeah, for big
I
picture
agree.
purposes, it's like, yeah, I'd be hesitant. So just, again, it's more just what parents are thinking that have kids those age, just so that the board is aware.
That's fair.
So,
Thank you. I don't like it, but it's fair. That's a fair thing to say. Does anyone have anything else they would like to see for the August meeting?
Is it possible to provide cultural demographic information across the schools? That's for me. I'm curious. What
Kate,
that
why
looks
you
like.
gotta complicate things? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm a data person. That's
I'm
what I do in my
kidding.
like grown-up job. I
That's
like
all.
the data.
I'm kidding.
You remind
That's
me
from
of
the-
somebody named, which is all good.
I don't know if that's a good thing or
The
not.
state has that.
I don't know if we had it.
Yeah.
No, but I was talking about just by.
The state
the
has it
schools as
for
a
every
whole.
one of our schools, the demographic, both the ethnic and economic. So, I mean, that could be something we could help try to put together. That's posted, but we don't have it for our preschools unless Ms. Brooks already has that.
Hey.
She might.
Hey,
I was curious
Jeremy,
about across, not just preschool, across each elementary as a whole.
Jeremy,
Jeremy says.
is that information that we would actually be able to easily get, or would you suggest that be building by building?
It's actually already available. So Member Bolton is correct. It is available on the ODE website from the state, as well as in the school profile booklet for this committee. If you go back to several meetings ago in the various versions we've put out, that booklet includes all of the demographic breakdown for every school. So it's available online on Board Docs currently.
What was your statement, Karen?
I don't think we got that.
Earlier on, that's the long piece of,
Yeah.
Yeah. You got one probably, Carol. Could
Hey,
you-
Jeremy, do you remember the date of that?
Directly not right off. I think the latest version probably would have been either in the January or February meeting.
Okay. So you all can go back and reference. It's there, and you can use Board Docs to get it. If it's already there, I don't want to waste our staff time to do that again. Yeah. Sure. So is everybody good? Any questions, Ms. Emily? You good? Yes, ma'am.
I would like to, I do think to reemphasize some sort of overall, the kind of the cost of transportation currently
That's what I
for,
was
yeah.
suggesting.
You're right. And I'm just, that's what I said. I want to reiterate that, especially for our high schools. You know, the real cost is in the yellow bus kind of stuff for the middle grades and the elementaries, because Metro, as bad as it is in many ways, it's meaning that we don't have our old routes, but it is the
It's
cheapest
the cheapest.
form of what we have. But the idea of how much does it cost to move kids in and out of their neighborhoods and yellow bus, or what would it be for like middle grades versus transporting the 7th and 8th graders to high schools? See, that's a huge cost. Yeah, well, because the charters don't allow the kids to be on, charters and parochials don't allow them to be on Metro, so we're transporting those kids. And then some of our families opt to be still on yellow bus versus Metro, which is very cost. There's all kinds, just some of an overview of just how much transportation does cost.
Okay. So just to clarify, I put down the cost of transportation for high schools, which is kind of an overview. What would it be for middle grades to a middle school versus transporting middle grades to a high school? Something like that. Because our cost for high schools is only $3 million. Are you wanting that disaggregated per
It'll end
school?
up being- it always is like 5 million.
Well, even do you want
yes,
the
it's
5 million
cheap.
broken down to
It's
over
cheap.
16 schools? 'Cause that's
I
how
don't,
many high schools.
the high schools, what I'm talking about is the 7th and 8th grade piece. Because what you'd be doing is if we're pulling them out of high schools, see, this would be the additional cost. If you're pulling them out of high schools and they're on yellow bus going to a middle school, yeah, if our 7th and 8th graders aren't riding Metro, then we're going to be supplying them yellow bus. So there could be an additional cost regarding having a middle school. So it's all, I mean, it's not, nothing,
One of the things Jen said,
yeah,
she was here.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Metro.
But it's all a lot cheaper than building new high schools.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so it sounds like, yes, ma'am. I'm nervous coming to you. You're gonna be talking.
Please don't. I'm just thinking about the future after you solve the problem for year one, moving year 2 to 5, because if we're talking about the big picture, and get a feel for what John P. Parker is.
We can't answer that at the moment, but what we can do, I don't feel comfortable answering that. What I can do is say that we will keep that at the forefront of discussions. Now, I don't think you're going to let us forget that. But I also,
It's like a consensus point.
but I think it's very fair. I think it's very fair, particularly around the discussions about the decisions about Bramble immediately. I personally think it's fair to have those conversations around the impact that one particular purchase has for the surrounding schools. So, but to Board Member Jones' point, while I may not like how she says it and when she always brings it up, it is fair. Hey, I'm just being honest. But I think that because I think it's fair to say we need to put that in perspective of everything else. But I don't think it's fair to say we shouldn't have that conversation. So,
Just not now.
Big picture.
well, but that's part, to me, that's part of our picture. So I think that we can agree that we will continue to make sure that stays.
If we're interested in the further years out, I think it makes sense as you look at further years out. One thing that makes complete sense is that Schroeder will be a 9-12 because that's going to end up being a reality, I think, around the district. But the other way is I wouldn't be looking at J.P. Parker strictly from the Madisonville attendance boundaries. I would again be looking at just like the PRM people about the drop down or whatever and how we've impacted Silverton and impacted Kennedy Heights. There's a cluster of schools that will be impacted with one another, whether it's one of those schools ends up being a middle school for the east side. We don't know how that's going to work, but I think you have to look at it, and we've said this throughout to Silverton and to Woodford, expanding their attendance boundaries. And because they're no longer magnets, so they're not going to be getting all that. So I think if you look at J.P. Parker, you want to be looking in that corridor. You want to be looking in that cluster of schools. And so would Silverton, and so would Woodford and PRM. So that's the way to kind of look at it.
And my last question is, because I know you all have a draft, but is it possible when we attend meetings that we can see the draft, where we can read the information so we can fully understand what you're referring to?
So I'm going to, and I hate telling you no, but I don't think that it would be very prudent for us to let you see something that might change, because clearly there's going to be some changes between board member Jones and myself. So you may look at it on a Monday and I go in and delete it and say something different and then she agrees to it, but you're stuck on Monday's results. So I think
you all would have an updated report at the next meeting.
yes, at the next meeting, we should have the draft ready that we've all,
That you all can.
Mhm. that was, I think that was the plan. Am I wrong? That we share it there?
Well, you can't share it before the board is shared.
Well, okay, let me take you back into my head. I was thinking we may move the board presentation to the next one
Yeah, I mean,
in September. I was thinking we could bring it here first, but do you think we should just
I'm
not?
confused. I'm confused. Maybe I'm not
One
understanding
to
what you're asking for. You want you
I
want.
was just looking at you all with your draft, and I was just listening to your conversation. It would be helpful for us if we could be looking at the same information. If you don't want us to take it with us, that's fine, we can hand it back to you. I just want to look at what we're discussing.
I think in fairness today, both of our staff members, for reasons of health and family concerns, both of our board staff members are not here. So that's one of the reasons you have less things to be looking at. But I agree with Kareem, these things that get written, you know, bringing them back or not having them or whatever.
I just think it's very unfair for you. It is like a brain dump right now, and it's very unfair. But I think it is fair to ask for the draft. I just don't think that this is like one person's brain dump. This is not inclusive of all of us. So I would hate for you to see something before Board Member Jones sees it, because that's in essence what would be happening. But I was thinking maybe we could get some consensus around moving our presentation to the first week in September, and then we bring it back to the committee meeting August 24th as a draft that maybe you could see after we've had an opportunity to come up with something collectively. But again, I can't say one way or the other, but I think to see it right now today, you don't want to see it.
Okay.
If this conversation was indicative of anything, we just haven't, we got to put some more stuff in there. It's just not fair. Did we have anybody that wanted to comment it online? Okay, that's probably safer. I wouldn't want to jump into this either.
I have one question that just popped into my head. Apologies. I know we're doing preschool talks for Bramble and we're starting 4 new classrooms. So let's go to year 2 in this conversation. What happens to our preschool teachers if we would not maintain preschool at John P. Parker? Are you going to add 4 more preschool classrooms at Bramble and now have 8 classrooms? Or what happens to our current teachers? Just something to think about in the future.
So that's an administration question.
Because
and she hasn't proposed anything to the board yet.
right.
So that's a great question.
Didn't know if it's going to move to 8
Yeah.
classes and now you've got 8 preschools and we don't have or are they just going to be shuffled all over the district? Just a concern that I have as a preschool parent.
That's a good question. I'm going to actually write that down as a concern of the community. I think that's a question she hasn't even proposed that to us yet, but I think it's a very good question.
Conversations, I know when they were talking about, early conversation, I know when they were talking about the potential of what the corridor looks like and the potential of middle schools, there was talk about phasing out at Parker and phasing into Bramble, what that looked like. So that was a huge concern of what happens to those kids if that no longer happens.
And my suggestion is, if there's a community session on August the 3rd, ask that question. Let us on the record, because I think the administration is doing those sessions, right? That's an administrative question. Because the administration has been tasked with exactly what you're talking about, which is long-term thinking, especially for that.
And I feel that get the information out to people sooner so they can plan to attend those meetings. Because a lot of people have jobs. And then if you get a notification, maybe a day or 2 ahead of time, you might not be able to make it. But right now, we know it's going to be August 3rd. Maybe Ms. Davis can go ahead and let people know.
No, that's not Ms. Davis, though. That's strictly administration. Ms. Davis is the board admin, but that's from early learning. That's a superintendent. She's gonna direct her staff with communications and marketing to do that. But but our
Well, we get the email that comes from Ms. Davis that says when the meetings are.
that's from ad hoc.
Yes.
For the board.
Direct responses to the question.
Yeah. That's an
Okay, so
action.
we have to put the dates.
You talking? Okay, wait. Are you talking about for Bramble? Or are you talking about for these meetings?
Any meetings, if we know ahead of time, people can plan accordingly because they have jobs.
Well, the notice for the committee meeting always go out to everybody at the same time. So you get it the same time we get it, okay? So, but for the community engagement meetings, that's the administration's responsibility. And so we have to communicate that needs to be done a little earlier. And that's up to administration to figure out how best to do that so that people get in early.
Yes,
Yeah.
but that's not Ms. Davis.
Because a lot of
Yeah,
parents,
that's not mistaken.
I had a lot of parents that would have been at the meeting, but they said, I can't get off at that time, you know.
Well,
And
that
I just
meeting,
wish I-
that particular meeting advertised early. And I know it because I knew I wasn't gonna be able to make some of the other ones, so there was a calendar that came out. I believe it was on the website. That was a calendar that came out that had those dates on there because I plugged in one.
Okay.
So, yeah, I would suggest that you also say to
Let them
people,
know.
check the calendar,
Check,
but
yeah.
we also need to go back and share that concern with administration, and we will do that.
Are they able to do a targeted robocall to the family area? Robocalls
That's
to
a
our
good idea.
families because
I
you're
don't know.
targeting, you're leaving voicemails.
Yeah.
So that way you're doing 2 more points of communication. Talking points is already part of the district, so that would be an easy way to communicate.
They should be doing that. Postcards. But as a suggestion, we can share
Postcards take-
post. That's true, but everybody doesn't have the ability to internet access. I mean, everybody doesn't have that. But one of the things that I heard the superintendent say is that she wanted people to call our customer care and ask if you have a phone, you want to attend. Our customer care center will have those dates if you don't have internet access. If you have internet access, please go to the web page, and I think she said it was on the front page. Click the calendar and find it. Word of mouth is also significant as well. So we are wanting engagement. We want parents to attend and find out, ask these questions. The questions that you all have for us, we have to ask them what their plan is. So I will tell you, as a mom, when I was here, it comes far heavier from the community asking the question versus a board member saying the community asked that question. That both things are true, but one's just a little bit strengthier. So utilize your power and ask questions. And if you have any questions of us, our admin, Phyllis Davis and Pat Bruckner, happy to find out anything that you need. But they are not the ones who will do it. They will do exactly what we will do, go and talk to marketing and communications, or go find the answer to you for you. Which is, if all else fails, you can do that, but you all can call them too. Okay? And I don't think there's anything else for us to talk about, but I'm happy to entertain a motion to adjourn. And I'll vote. All right. Thanks, Rob. Have a good night.